So yeah, your event went really well. I heard that there was quite a turnout.
Yep.
I mean, where else do you do an event but Las Vegas? Really? I mean, come on.
Right.
Are we going to get the Bitcoin convention here eventually?
Eventually. Stuff. I mean, we were a couple months ago at the Bitcoin Miami convention.
Florida.
Stuff.
Yeah.
It's so funny. These Bitcoin guys, all they talk about is other cryptos. They don't even talk about Bitcoin.
Is it like red pill guys talking about black pill guys?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
But it's kind of funny. We went out there and we were kind of like the we thought we were going to be like, because we're not just Bitcoin, we're other coins, and it ended up being this whole event where we're like, they ended up, everyone that talked to us because Pulse Chain was coming out and stuff, the Richard Hart, the Richard Hart thing.
Chain.
Yeah, he knows about it.
Oh yeah. No, I mean I'm a Hexican too, so
hey,
I got some. Now I'm not as far into it, but I the old man has a wallet and it was able to do a couple of things. So it's been an interesting learning experience. But I told you once before, my first crypto experience was back in 2014.
Right.
I bought a Bitcoin. Now I traded in and out of it many times, but I had a good run for a while there for sure. And as of today, it's still very good. And some of it's based on the information I got from you guys, learning from you guys coming into the space. I learned a lot because I really didn't pay attention to it.
Right.
You just do a savings account sort of thing when you're a guy like me, because that's what we've been taught our whole lives. And really got to take a different mindset when you're talking about crypto. And heck, dollar cost, dollar cost averaging, man.
Yeah, man.
So I learned a lot about that, and that just goes to show you can always teach an old dog new tricks.
Right. Now, is that a part of a masculine frame? A masculine presence?
Well, yeah, of course. And that's what we're here to talk about, right? Is I just had a new book coming out, and you got a chance to take a look at it, and this has been a project for a while. You and I have been in the space for a while, but we had a mutual friend where we were doing, some video Zooms with, and over the course of time, I met you out at the conference on masculine excellence. But prior to that, I had taken some of the video lectures where we were working with men in this space. And primarily I was talking about how to become a more durable man in today's environment, kind of like conventional masculinity, really, and success in long-term relationships. And one thing I noticed is there was an extreme need through doing the consultations for guys to kind of develop some emotional regulation or durability and to reacquire their masculinity. It's been under assault for some 50 to 70 years now. So it's kind of been a labor of love putting together and doing the research to put a book out there that's just not another book complaining about masculinity being toxic, but one that actually lists the behaviors and traits of masculine men in a conventional way. When I say conventional, not only is it traditional in some cases, but it crosses all cultures. And why is this so important? Well, it's so important as human beings, the polarity between men and women. It's masculine and feminine. We can all recognize that. Yeah. And so as men, we have to project that masculinity out into the world in order to get things done. It's often been said that the difference between men and women is their primary agency here on the planet. Women have sexual agency. It's their primary way. They have the children, they create human beings. Well, what is a man's primary agency in the world? It's his problem-solving ability. That's probably the number one skill that he needs when you get past survival and procreation, is the ability to solve problems. And how do you do that? You have to acquire that skill. You're not born with it. Whereas if you're a woman, you're born with the ability to have children if you're normal. Right?
Is that like a test of IQ or like a test of intelligence and stuff in order to be able to get to the ability where you can problem solve?
Well, at any level of intelligence, you have to solve certain problems anyway, right? But yeah, it is, as you learn to, in fact, that problem solving skill is probably one of the most important of the 7 skills that I identify in the book, the skill set of a dominant masculine presence. And when I say a dominant masculine presence, I'm talking about the problems that masculinity's had in the last 70 years being toxic, and it's been suppressed by our school system. I even go so far as talk about why all the way back to B.F. Skinner using operant conditioning on young boys so that they're more compliant in the workforce. Our whole school system, if you didn't know, was designed to keep men somewhat settled down so that they were good, compliant factory workers. And I throw some quotes in there from like Norman Rockefeller. I'm sure you're familiar with the name, and some of the others when the school systems were being put together. and they talked about they didn't want a nation of thinkers. They wanted a nation of workers. And they funded the initial board on education that was later voted into the national, which became the Department of Education. It was a private organization that was voted into a public, kind of like the Federal Reserve. You think it's private, but you think it's federal.
Right.
In this case, they took a private organization that actually did take it federal. But the whole idea was to have a standardized education system that would create workers in the Industrial Revolution. The side effect is you couldn't have the same ambitions and aggressiveness. It was kind of tamped down. And so I go into some of that in detail, kind of as the problem and the crisis of masculinity right now as it stands. And then I start to kind of outline why it's important to acquire a dominant masculine presence. When I say dominant, it's not domineering. Domineering is actually the opposite. Domineering essentially is grandstanding, Miguel. And we all know people like that. You grandstand, I beat my chest. And really, that's just kind of, you're trying to project onto the world by telling everybody how awesome you are.
Right.
And that doesn't really work. It's that kind of guy that when he steps in the room, he doesn't have to say a word. But because of his presence, his body language, his mannerisms, you know that the big animal just walked in the room.
Right.
And you know people like that, being in your industry, you know when the big animals arrive.
Oh, we definitely do.
And so that's a part of that. And where people get confused is they like a yes or no answer. Am I alpha or am I beta? And being in this space, we all know alpha, beta, and of course the sigma male.
Right.
We all know about that, right? And that's very attractive, and it helps us understand human behavior somewhat. But the problem with it is it's very incomplete, because you can think a guy is an alpha or you can think a guy is beta. But if you look at success factors of a man in his overall life, it's something more than just how it's been outlined in the sexual hierarchy of alpha beta. And that's where
Deltas.
I bring in the 7 skills of a dominant masculine presence. There's leadership skills that go with that. Not the servant leader, but the transformational